may wish to go one by one, but I think in general, just address everything at once.
Yeah, I mean, from the questions that when you answer, obviously there will be some things that I will see that you've already answered, so I won't have to ask them again. Maybe I could just start from the very basic information, like what are your qualifications?
Okay. You want us about my gender?
Well, I can see. I don't think we're a compromised country where you have those discussions, you know.
I think so.
Yes.
Okay. I hold Master of Laws.
Okay. And what department are you in?
Faith and Justice.
African Justice.
Faith
and Justice. Okay. And your position is?
Program manager.
I'm not asking for names only because of confidentiality one, and I think some people would not want to be identified.
But if you don't ask for a name, the organization there will still reflect. You'll put an organization.
Okay, so the purpose of that is to say that so many people from civil society were interviewed, and then if I say, like I just had an interview with someone from the media, so I can say this: 2 of them were from media, 4 were from NGOs. If it's from government, then I can say 4 are from government. And even with the position that I've put there, it's for me to be able to say the people that know much about this have a qualification of so much and hold senior positions. Not to actually mention them. Yeah. So I guess we can start. Maybe you can tell me what's your general comment on the Zambian governance system?
Okay. I think our governance system is more or less improving.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think we have seen some improvement in the way policies, in the way just the governance structure is done.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some improvement. Considering where we're coming from, I think we have seen some bit of accountability, we have seen some bit of transparency, and we have seen some bit of the rule of law.
Mm-hmm.
And efforts have been done. And so, Gina, I think there is an improvement.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, with a lot of challenges here and there, but it's a process. It's a process, and we hope we can be better, like what has been achieved by other countries.
Okay.
And so, Gina, I think it's okay. We're not okay, but we are, we are moving. It's a process.
When you say what has been achieved by other countries, would you be able to give examples of what you mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think you may wish to know, like, for example, issues of access to information. Access to information promotes open democracy. And open democracy is one of the tenets of governance. We cannot separate the two. And so other countries surrounding Zambia, like Angola, South Africa, and Zimbabweans, they have the access information law. And so yet here in Zambia, we're still struggling to have this law in place. And so it's from that base that I'm saying I think we are not like look at even we have just had the Constitutional Court 2-3-4 months ago. But in other countries, in South Africa, they've had this system, this court in place for some time now. And so they've attended those issues. When we look at issues to do with economic, social, and cultural rights, it's another example where in other countries, such provisions are justiciable. But here in Zambia, we're still struggling to have this and that. And talk of the Public Order Act, all those acts, all those pieces of legislations that restricts freedom of association, freedom of assembly. Here we're still struggling how to implement the law when it is very straightforward. Okay, and so yet in other countries, I think such processes are not a challenge. We have seen the media being, just up to towards the elections, during and even after the elections, media house shut down because they are criticizing the government. They are not providing that news which the government would need, and so. But in other countries, I think they're able to relate to that. Okay, because the media is it's more like the fourth arm of the government, and so that's why I'm saying we are not like in other countries where the government would tolerate certain things for the sake of this democracy, for the sake of this government.
So looking back 10 years ago, what exactly do you think has changed in terms of government?
Looking back 10 years ago, I think on the positive side, I think we have seen a number of stringent measures put in place to curb corruption. We have seen some policies. We have seen, prosecution of corrupt individuals, and those is what governance is all about. Where you need to come up with those policies to ensure there's accountability, the resources are being utilized, and we have seen, of course, some laws coming in place. For instance, I think which law can I cite? I think looking at the amended bill and the amended constitution, the Electoral Act, and all those laws. But on top of 10 years ago, I think we have moved. Okay, we have moved, and there is some improvement. The situation is not going to, we're not deteriorating in terms of our governance system, but I think there's progress to that. Of course, but we need to realize that each government that comes in, or each leader, or every leadership, when they come in, I think that the things that they would tolerate and things which they need to tolerate. And other leaders would be, tolerate criticism, others won't tolerate criticism, and so it's I can say it's somewhat difficult because 10 years ago, or if you trace 10 years from 10 years up to now, we've had how many leaders? We've had about 3 or 4 presidents. We've had Manasseh.
Yes.
We've had the Rupia Banda, Chiluba, and the current president. And so the way these have done the governance, or the way they've done the governance, the way they've managed the governance system is quite different. Okay, we saw like under Manasseh in 2008, before he died, we saw him, coming also strong on corruption. Okay, and we see some of his closest allies being, arrested and prosecuted, and we saw a shift when he left. We saw a shift of RB, who you can remember the acquittal of the FTJ, which raised a lot of controversy. Okay, and some people thought, I think the man, the RB by then, Rupia Banda, maybe was, he was trying to be soft to FTJ so that maybe can get some support from the northern province. All those. So every president that comes in, he comes it comes with a different system. Okay, it comes with a different system. We saw in Sata came in, he established a lot of commission of inquiries to ascertain what went wrong here and there. And in most cases, some of those commission of inquiries, they never went any further, okay, or anywhere. Okay, so others, it was just a way of trying to pay off some of the colleagues that campaigned with him and things like that. So, looking back 10 years ago, what do I think about what has changed in the governance system? But I think what has changed is everything being equal. I think mostly the general policies, general laws, they have remained the same. They have remained the same. But what is there is basically the implementing agencies or agents, okay? The state departments, that has been more like strengthened, but otherwise in terms of laws, we have not had major shifting in our laws and policies.
Would you consider that as a negative? Because when you were starting to answer the question, you said these are on the positive side. So would you consider that the laws and the policies are still the same? Would that be a negative?
I would consider it to be negative in the sense that I think we should have moved. We should have moved, I think, to match with modern democracy. Yeah, we should have moved. I can give an example of, the famous Public Order Act. I think the way President Manasseh administered, or his administration administered the Public Order Act is different from the way Sata and Lungu administered it. Because I think we saw under that president, political parties were allowed to do their campaigns, freedom of expression, freedom of assembly, freedom of association. I think there was a bit of lenience for these political parties. But when we saw Sata coming in, Lungu coming in, we saw a lot of restriction on freedom of association, freedom of assembly. And so to me, I think it is in a negative sense.
In a democracy, we say that the people are at the center of the democracy. Would you say that applies to Zambia currently?
I mean, yes, people are supposed to be at the center of democracy. People are supposed to take the leadership in terms of making decisions for things that affect them. And so in every leadership, I think people must be the center, or must be at central. We need always to consider the people that you govern. And so a democracy calls for the people themselves to make decisions for themselves, because they are the ones who are rightly affected, as compared to one person making a decision or bulldozing. And so people must be at the center. And in Zambia, wow, I don't say, because for example, let's look at the constitution making process. The Zambian people have been calling for enacting the constitution through a referendum. But I think we saw the government bulldozing in this process. Okay, so we do say people at the center of democracy. Okay, we saw just the last ended elections. The government decided to carry out the referendum alongside the general election, and yet people rejected that. They wanted the referendum to be separate from the general election. But the government bulldozed. And so you tend to wonder whether this is democracy or not. Because democracy entails that the people must be consulted, they must make decisions on things that affect them, as compared to one person who would want to be an alpha and omega, or to be a small god and decides for everyone. and so in Zambia, I don't know whether that concept of democracy, where people at the center, really applies. Yeah, but of course, in some instances, it does. But in most cases, I think I've seen the government having their way out, leaving the people.
When you say in some instances, which ones are those where you think that maybe it applies?
I can give an example of which one. I think if I remember, I'll get back to that. But yeah, I can still get back to that.
What do you see as the obstacles to democracy in Zambia?
I think the issues do with the high number of unemployed young people, so term of poverty. Because when you're poor, at times it's difficult to add a voice or a voice to be heard. And those with money usually will not look at you or consider your views. And so that has been another challenge. High poverty levels, the high illiteracy levels, because citizens must be aware, must be informed. But I think the number of when you go in rural areas, you discover that the majority of people have not stepped. Okay, those who have had an opportunity to step in class are few, due to, of course, issues of poverty, lacking of resources. But the high levels of education, you discover that in most cases, you've been to the village. Where is the village?
In Borokoso. You mean my village? No, but I've been to other villages.
Where is the village?
It's in Borokoso.
So you've been there?
No.
When you go to Mprokoso or when you go to any village, you discover that the number of young people, a number of people are not educated. They have not gone further in their education. And so that becomes a challenge because when you have an educated cadre, these will be able to provide the checks and balances to the government. These will be able to make a meaningful contribution because they become a well-informed group or cadre. Okay, and so the moment you have a high number of people with little or less education, it becomes a challenge. And the other issue is to do with gender. We have seen the male folk trying to despise ladies or women to participate in governance. And when a lady speaks, we'll say, what can she tell us? And so we have seen a situation where the male folk have dominated the process, and their voices are more heard than that of women. Why? Because we have these imbalances in the community, where a woman is not regarded to be, useful, either to the family, to the community. Okay, so issues of gender, what we call gender discrimination or inequalities, all those things come to play. The other issue that could be an obstacle to democracy can I say corruption. Corruption is another issue where we've seen, I think those who are put in high offices, they have abused that authority and they have diverted resources which could have added value to someone out there who could have contributed a voice. Okay, And the issues of the growing tension in the country of tribalism, that is another issue. Where some group of people are told you can't do ABCD because you belong to this group. So that also, I think, is likely to hinder other people participating in the governance system of the country.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now we can look at access to information. What do you know about the Access to Information Bill?
Access to Information Bill, I think, as I indicated, it's still a bill. It's not a law.
Okay.
And so this Access to Information Bill, which is yet to be enacted into law, it's basically a bill that is there to enhance democracy, to enhance accountability, to give the people information so that they are able to provide checks and balances to the government. And so the Access to Information Bill entails that people who have the right to seek information from public institutions and information that or information that is public in nature and information that is governmental in nature. And so that's basically what is Access to Information Bill is all about.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think that citizens have access to information?
They may have access to information, but they lack the legal backing.
Okay.
There's no legal mandate that, or there's no legal framework that guarantees them to access this information. I think we have had a challenge where you go to this public office, you seek this information, you're told, the first question they'll ask you, who are you, where are you coming from, and where are you taking information? Okay? Yet you discover that information that's supposed to either advance your career, bring development to yourself, to your community, or to the area where you come from, or where you live, and information that you're supposed to use so that you hold your councillor, your MP, your minister, or president accountable. Some of the decisions that they make. And so in Zambia, I think this has been denied. Yes, of course, government has always told us, now look, you can work in any government office and get this information. But I think the fact that there's no law that can back me, that can... Because what happens if the minister refuses or this public officer refuses to provide that information? You can't do anything, you can't take him or her anywhere. And so it is accessing information in public institutions has been left at the mercy of the public officer. Okay? So it's when the public officer gives you that information, it's a person of goodwill, and not that it is your right to get that information. No. If you decide, you can say no. Yeah, and you can take it away.
Okay. You mentioned checks and systems can provide checks and balances and accountability. How do you think that's being done in the absence of this bill?
Yeah, in the absence of this bill, it's quite challenging because you can only do that if you have information. Yeah. I mean, say for example, there's a government project being done in Kafue or Chirungo or elsewhere, and we don't even know how much money has been allocated towards that. How the contractor was contracted or was engaged, the qualification of the contractor. We don't have all that information. How will you provide any checks and balances to the running of that project? Even when the public officer tells you, we spent so much on this project. Okay. You do agree. You don't have the information. Okay? You don't have the information. Currently, I think it is a challenge, and providing checks and balances. Actually, most people they do not even know that as citizens they hold responsibility. I mean, they have the responsibility to provide that accountability, that checks and balances any public officer. They do not know.
Mm-hmm.
They do not know. And so it's only maybe you and me or someone out there who could have learned, who could know that,
Mm-hmm.
you have this responsibility as citizen to hold your leaders accountable. But I think in the amended constitution, there is
Mm-hmm.
a provision that empowers citizens to hold their leaders accountable. But that is more. It's not very conclusive. Not until maybe you have pieces of legislation that will specifically empowers you to have that information.
Mm-hmm.
That will help you to provide the checks and balances, not to leave everything at the will of the public.
Okay. Tell me what you know about the process of coming up with a bill.
Okay, I think the first thing is the people must be involved. Because the bill, which ultimately becomes a law, a policy, must be there to serve the people. And so the process must start from engaging the general public, who would fit in the idea that you want to address or that you want to table. And so meeting the people, gather information, making research, all that begin the process of coming up with the bill. And so once you have made the people, have made the research on that particular subject or matter, then you reduce that into writing. But you need to appreciate that when bills are tabled in Parliament, so the different bills, the different bills. But I think there is a department, the legal department at Parliament or National Assembly, that helps legislatures, that helps members of the Parliament to come up with bills, the drafting of the bills, providing advice on what's supposed to be done. Of course, this department works hand in hand with the Ministry of Justice. And so, how a bill starts, it must start from the people. The people must have an input in everything. Because if people do not have input in it, the bill will be rejected. Even if you enact it into law, or you have this policy in place and it does not answer to the aspiration of the people, then it becomes a white elephant. It will just collect dust on the earth.